Rampart Ridge Road, Range Road, was one of the best natural or high probability success points for the containment of this fire to the north.
We've just been told that there now is an evacuation order for the balance of Mountain Shadows up through Peregrine. So please get that on your newscast right away. We do have an evacuation order from the Incident Command for the balance of Mountain Shadows up through Peregrine.
Yeah, Mark, we're actually sort of in the, I'm going to take this mask off for just a little bit, but we're in the northern section of Colorado Springs that has really been socked in over the last half an hour or so with a lot of this smoke, and it's literally raining ash here. We're sort of in near Centennial and Fillmore, and this is a neighborhood that's filled with homes, lots of businesses in the area. And as you sort of pan, I want to pan up to some of these neighborhoods to give you an idea just how smoky it is in the area, because this is smoke that is really enveloped the northern part of Colorado Springs within the last hour to maybe hour and 15 minutes.
Hello everyone, Mark Kobrick and Adele Arakawa in the 9 News Information Center. We're going straight to a live camera in Colorado Springs, where the Waldo Canyon fire now is apparently a runaway. There are multiple structures burning, and the fire is currently running out of control.
We understand that multiple homes in the Mountain Shadows subdivision, the Mountain Shadows area, have been destroyed. This is video we're looking at live now of this 5,000-acre fire in Waldo Canyon.
The Woodman Bluffs area also has homes blazing. There are other homes that are on fire in subdivisions that we are not as yet able to identify because of the thick smoke that is rolling off of the fire. But the Forest Service's worst fears have developed regarding this fire. It has leapt all the lines and is now burning readily across the Front Range in Colorado Springs. And we're going to go over to Channel 20 to continue our coverage as our coverage of the Waldo Canyon fire continues. Chris, we're hoping you can hear us. We know cell phones are a problem, but we're looking at that neighborhood behind you and the fire advancing on it from behind it. And I assume now that we are looking west behind you, correct? To the west?
Mark, that's precisely what you're seeing, and what you're seeing is a lot of the smoke that really obscured our view earlier in the day, and the smoke is blowing towards Pikes Peak. So unfortunately, what it also does, it burns back on a number of these homes, and we've seen a couple of these homes actually burn within the last few minutes. But it does give us a viewpoint of the Mountain Shadows area of Colorado Springs, and I got to tell you, this is a wide area with a number of homes, and I can see some flashing lights in the neighborhood in front of me, but this is just one of those situations. It's a very tragic situation for a number of people living in Colorado Springs. This is a fire that's going to be long remembered in this area simply because of the number of homes that were lost on this day. I can't give you a precise number of homes, but I can see at least 3 or 4 structures burning right in front of me right now, and this fire continues to burn. The good news, if there is any good news, is that the winds have died down quite considerably. Again, they're blowing to the west. And we're seeing the temperatures drop, and actually you can feel a little bit of humidity in the air. But this is sort of the Mountain Shadows area. We are north of Garden of the Gods, and sort of if you come off of Woodman, off the interstate, and you go to the west, this is what you would see directly to your west, this mountainside on fire, and it continues to burn. As I speak again, I see a number of flashing lights in the neighborhood. Gives you the indication that firefighters are in this neighborhood. They're really trying to do their best with what they can, but there's just so many structures that are burning right in front of our eyes, right in front of their eyes, and you could hear them on emergency radio traffic throughout the afternoon really saying, there's not anything that they can do for that particular house. That particular house is just going to have to burn. This might be a house that they can try to save, and they try to make an effort on that. But again, when a fire burns as ferociously as it did over the last couple of hours, and it burns to the east toward the city of Colorado Springs, they were worried about this, and this is the net result. Mark?
Chris, we're going to hop back to Coronado High School in the command center and get the latest explanation on what has happened in the last few hours.
Shadows community, and that's what you're seeing today. And it greatly saddens me tonight to have to share with you that we have multiple structures that are impacted in the Mountain Shadows community. I can't give you a number right now, and the truth is that I can't even begin to focus on what a number is. What I can focus on is that we know that there are multiple places impacted. We are in that area working. We talked about when it came up over the canyon and coming down. You know, that was our contingency point, and we had firefighters in there staged and ready to deal with that fire as we expected it kind of to back down. But with those 65-mile-an-hour winds blowing on the top, they had to kind of retreat back to Plan B.
Well, good evening. I'm not going to repeat anything that was already said. This is a firestorm of epic proportions. We're being watched across the country on how we handle it. And it's absolutely important that we understand that right now, as we sit and breathe right over the hill, we've got a ton of people, firefighters from the county, the city, the state, the feds, all of us, arm in arm, putting this thing out as we speak. 3 times the wind has changed and left going north and then came right back at us again. We just left there 20 minutes ago with the mayor and police chief. We're making stands. We're saving many homes, many homes as I'm listening to it since about 4:30, 5 o'clock this afternoon. You need to know that our people are doing everything we can to make this thing come to a conclusion. And what we're doing is we're triaging homes. What that means is when you see one that's heavily involved, the next step is to catch the ones next to it and try to save the ones that appear to be salvageable.
And we're looking at roughly 32,000 people having been evacuated. That's a large number of people. It goes beyond just mountain shadows. It moves north up into the Peregrine area. It moves into a small sliver of off of Woodman, that's county, and right on to the south end of the residential part of the Air Force Academy. So we have a lot of people right now that are trying to figure out where they're going to stay and needing these resources. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for those of us in the first responder business and those of you behind the cameras to get that information out where they can go. Right now, that is the most critical thing we can do, is get that information to them. 32,000 people out of their homes right now wondering what's happening. Over 800 firefighters, well over 800 if you include the Colorado Springs Fire Department, right now placing themselves in danger of a fire that we have said all along is predictable, has multiple heads, and can cover 3 miles in a blink of an eye.
Chris, we know that you have a special vantage point, and from where you are standing, once again you get, as Adele said, this panoramic view of this neighborhood or of these multiple neighborhoods that are on fire. And in fact, what we know is that many of the neighborhoods burning above this are hidden in the smoke.
Yeah, and what you're looking back at me, behind me, is the Mountain Shadows neighborhood. We're actually out on a bluff that gives you a really good vantage point, or a very bad vantage point, depending on your perspective, what's going on behind me. A lot of those individual glows, those very hot fires that are burning right now, those are homes. And those are people's homes in those neighborhoods that will continue to burn. A number of these homes have been burning for 30 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. This is really very close to that worst case scenario that so many people in Colorado Springs talked years and years about. This is why they were so adamant about talking about mitigation efforts, about talking about cutting some of those trees down, about just being cognizant of what's going on, and also being aware that when you might have to evacuate, you're going to have to do it quickly. And that happened for tens of thousands of people today. This is really a massive evacuation. And people in Colorado Springs, they talk about the fact that 1/3 of the city is in that urban wildland interface, those places that are vulnerable to fire. And you're seeing the result of that behind me. What you do see, and I don't know if the camera's going to be able to pick it up, but in that neighborhood you see a number of flashing lights. I suspect, one, they're police officers with the Colorado Springs Police Department, but you're also seeing firefighters that are going from place to place. This fire is not burning intensely in the area behind me. What it is burning is a number of homes. Those homes will continue to burn, I suspect, for a number of hours, because the fire department's not going to prioritize the homes that are destroyed right now. They're going to try to prioritize the homes that they can still try to protect. But again, this is the worst case scenario. This is the scenario that people in Colorado Springs had talked about for decades. Really, they changed their whole fire mitigation plan just 10 years ago, recognizing that this was a possibility. And even with everything they've done, and they have done a lot down here, this shows you just what can happen when the wind takes a dramatic turn to the east and continues to blow, and you have a large, hot fire during dry times. This is the net result.
They are the images that Colorado will remember now for decades. This is the Waldo Canyon fire. Multiple homes continue to burn at this hour in the Mountain Shadows community.
A firestorm of epic proportions is how it is being described, and it was witnessed today by our Chris Vanderveen, who is standing by along the Front Range down there in the Springs tonight. And Chris, this will probably be the scene behind you for many hours to come.
Yeah, this is going to be a long firefight. You sort of get the sense that we're only just really in the beginning hours of what's going to be a very long firefight through the night for the hundreds of firefighters that are working on the fire. And Mark, I want to give you an idea of the situation that we're talking about. This is the Mountain Shadows neighborhood. There are a number of homes that are burning in this neighborhood still actively. And I want to zero in, if photographer Chris Hansen could zero in on a particular area where on the left, that is a home that is burning, but hopefully you can see on the right there is a home that is standing. There are a number of homes in that neighborhood that have survived so far, but the real worry right now is, and that's why so many firefighters are in the area, is they want to protect that home on the right and a number of the other homes that have survived this firestorm in the Mountain Shadows area, and that's why you're seeing a number of flashing lights. We know that there are firefighters on that mountain right now. We know that they're using water on a number of those homes, and you probably can't hear it, but what we can definitely hear right now, continuing to hear what sound very distinctly like gunshots. Obviously, they're not gunshots, but rather explosions that are taking place within the continued heat. These are the kind of explosions that you hear when a fire goes up in a house, except there are a number of homes that are burning right now, so you're hearing a number of explosions from different areas. This wind continues to push this fire gradually to the north and to the west. If you're familiar with the Colorado Springs area and the Mountain Shadows neighborhood, this smoke is currently blowing towards the Pikes Peak area. It is not good that it's blowing in that direction, but it's also not bad, because to the east there are other neighborhoods that are under that mandatory evacuation order that's been in place for a few hours now. 32,000 people in the northwest section of Colorado Springs are now under that mandatory evacuation order because of this fire, and it continues to burn in a number of areas, very violently in a number of areas. And this is a destruction that Colorado Springs has not seen. They have worried about this scene for decades. They have told people living in these areas that you need to be prepared to move should a fire move through the area. And about 4 o'clock this afternoon, in fact, about the same time that they were briefing the media about what this fire was doing, right behind them in that briefing, this fire took a turn towards the east and really started burning towards the Mountain Shadows area, towards the Peregrine area, and started burning homes very, very quickly. This was a firestorm unlike anything Colorado Springs had ever seen before. And believe me, this is a fight that is hardly over. These homes continue to burn, and they will burn for a number of hours as the night progresses. Mark and Adele.